everybody. Welcome to the Better Sex Podcast, where we have unfiltered conversations about sex and relationship and how to do it better. My name is Tantra Kat, and I am your shameless host. It is my mission to create better sex, better lovers for a better world. Thank you so much for joining us. Please, if you find value in our time together, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And better yet, if there's somebody who you think this conversation is going to support, please pass it on. Today, I am so excited about my guest, Louis Brantmeyer. He grew up a socially awkward, anxious, introverted, autistically diagnosed sci-fi loving nerd, and he had to endure watching his father brutally, physically, and emotionally abuse his mother. He grew up mostly broke, ignorant, blackout drunk, an arrogant atheist philosophy student turned teacher. But you know what? You have a very long and exciting bio, but I think I'm just going to skip right to how did you get here? I want to hear your story from you.
Honored, delighted. 15 years of personal development, pain, suffering, and deep commitment to building a business serving the world with my gifts. That's the short answer.
Got it. Well, listen, there were a few things in the bio that I do want to ask about now that I was going back to that. It sounds like you worked with a startup to bring BrainJuice to a national audience with Whole Foods. And then you started promoting the woo that works. Tell me about the woo that works.
Yeah, so this is interesting stuff. I did the Landmark Forum in 2012. Sounds like you have too. Super cool. Or familiar at least. I remember in the bathroom meeting a guy and he was like, oh, I'm a CEO of this brain supplement company. I was like, I know the CEO of a brain supplement company. Cool. So we started talking, connecting. Over the course of the next several months, we became friends, and he was launching this brain supplement energy shot whose purpose was to basically raise the mindfulness and consciousness and conscious awareness of the world through states of flow and states of high concentration. And I had just studied mysticism and meditation. And I was like, that's right there. I'm so already in for that. I always thought law of attraction was complete bullshit. I always thought that this metaphysical energy talk was just like, what is that? That's not empirical. We can't point to it. That's not real. Not in the same way that science likes to pare things down. So I started listening to an audio course called Your Wish is Your Command. And I found it to be really insightful and intelligent and interesting. It was a little hokey in places, but I was like, all right, I'll try this. And I started creating really crazy stuff, really fun stuff, like winning tickets to a play because I decided to in my imagination, or having the person who I had visualized on my dashboard. I had a picture of this beautiful woman show up at that same play. It's just a lot of interesting things. And I was like, okay, so I don't know why this is true or how this works, but it seems like something's going on here. I hung up my hat at about that level. I was like, it's probably some big mind game that makes things happen because of the subconscious or some shit like that. And I was like, okay, maybe that's it. That's good. But as the years went on, I kept encountering through Sam. He was my mentor and the CEO at BrainJuice, who took me on board as his account executive and eventually operations manager to put this product on a new store shelves and to get it made and produced and shipped out. He kept introducing me to more and more books, mentors, communities, conversations that opened my mind to the possibility of like, okay, well, maybe there's more going on here. There's more going on here than what your saline eyes can show you, to kind of quote Jars of Clay. Yeah, I ended up, it was like 3 years into my tenure at BrainJuice, 1 or 2 to 3 years, the former CEO of the third largest real estate company in the world, Mark Willis of Keller Williams, handed each of us copies of Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender by David Hawkins, MD, PhD. And I was like, okay. He was like, yeah, this is a big part of why I'm so successful is emotional and spiritual intelligence. And I was like, okay. And I continued to resist emotional intelligence for another couple of years. I continued to resist spiritual intelligence for a couple of years until finally I had onboarded it all. And I was like, you know what? The woo that works, energy, empathy, emotion, embodiment, intuition, spirituality, seems to be the thing that is most impactful for fulfillment and performance, whether in the bedroom or out. And it's not being taught in schools. It's not being taught in the mainstream of personal development in the most rigorous way. I started to put my weight, my energy, my attention behind finding ways to embody it myself and to support organizations that teach it. That's kind of my journey with the woo. I'm the purveyor of the woo that works now. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Just going back to what you were saying a moment ago, for you, the woo that works
Is seeing and perceiving life with an emphasis on energy, empathy, like an open heart, emotion, like feeling our feelings, embodiment, like realizing we have this thing called a body. I'm not just a brain taxi or a mind in a vat or whatever. Intuition and spirituality. There's a faculty that we have access to that can guide us great and guide us straight if we honor it and listen to it, whether it's a feeling in the gut or shivers up the spine or a voice or an image or a feeling or whatever. And then spirituality, which that's where it becomes real interesting, is like, what is spirituality? How do you know when someone's spiritual or conscious enough or whatever? And, it's a Course in Miracles to like the channeled works of Seth. And I'm not here to judge or to discern what that even means, but it's like we're more than physical, and there's some way of tapping into or being in relationship with that actually provides more fulfillment than anything on earth can, is the argument from my best spiritual teachers. I'm still finding my way there personally. I read A Course in Miracles, the workbook, recently, and one of the things they said was like, every one of your desires on earth is a lie. And I was like, not sure about that. I think my desires are real. Like, it's all a trap. It's a deception. It's made up by the ego to keep us trapped rather than being in love and being fully satisfied in every moment on our divine path. I see both sides. When that comes to sex, though, which I'm sure we'll get to, it's a really interesting conversation, because those who are fully embodied with their intuition, God guides their hands, so to speak, in making just the right moves and just the right words and expression that their partner wants without having to think consciously about it or figure it out. I've had this experience at least once through WhatsApp with a woman from Costa Rica. We were just engaging, and I started to anticipate her fantasies as we were having text sex, and to tell her exactly what I wanted that was also what she wanted. And she was like, this is the strangest, the coolest thing ever. And it was like energy sex. But my mentor at the time, he was like, dude, your dick isn't 4,000 miles long. You should find somebody who's actually in Austin. This is during the pandemic. Anyway, I took a turn there. I don't know if you want to follow all that, but
Of course, I want to follow all of that. In fact, I want to back up just a hair. You said in reading A Course of Miracles, it said that your desires are all, I can't remember exactly what the word was, but bullshit was kind of what I walked away with. So your desires are not accurate, is essentially what they were saying. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole so much as I'm curious how you use desire.
good question. Desire for me is the very reason for being in life as a separate being. So we're amphibious beings. We are capable of experiencing profound states of unity and communion with divinity. This is documented. You look at the work of James Martin and the Finders community, or the 45 Days to Awakening program, or the massive body of research gathered over 15 years. That's unquestionable. But we're also here for a reason. I believe that all things happen for a reason and all things work for good. We're here as separate beings. We're here to work for good. We're here to experience being here for a reason. Part of that is discovering within ourselves what desires are, so to speak, God or source breathed. Those desires, and I don't know if we both share a background in one taste, but like big D and little d desires, right? I believe that a lot of the big D desires literally are dharmic. They come from God. They come from source. Like, I'm here to make a huge difference and help souls to heal and see God again, or some shit. My spiritual teacher gave me this beautiful concept. He said, we're always on call. We're not always on duty. So we're on call to live our purpose, but we're not always on duty, meaning we're not always going to actively, moment by moment, necessarily have to devote ourselves consciously to living that purpose. Sometimes we're here on Earth School to play with Earth tools and our Earth toys according to Earth rules. Some of those toys are sex, having a body, money, power. We're not here not to play with those things. Indirect way of saying we are here to play with those things. And it's okay to have things as long as those things don't have us. It's okay to have an ego or a partner or sex, so long as those things don't have us and keep us from our full expression of purpose. So does that give you what you're looking for?
Kind of. So just to go back just a second, you mentioned big D and little d. Big D
Uh-huh.
desires and little d desires. And then I feel like you really hit the big D desires, the purpose. I love that. Always on call, not on duty.
Mhm.
Hearing when you say that, always on call, meaning that you are open to inspiration or downloads or however you want to term that, but you don't always have to act on each and every one of them. Would that be kind of accurate to what you were trying to communicate there?
Close. It's kind of the inverse. Things will always work out better in the long run, in the grand, beautiful scheme of things. If I see that I'm just a color, I am playing a part, I have the opportunity to surrender into a role that isn't being written by my ego
Mm-hmm.
and will not be exactly the same as whatever my ego happens to want, like burps and farts or giggles and sex and whatever in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The ideal, anything less than your highest choice is self-sabotage. So the ideal is if your heart is telling you to do something, do it. If your dharma is to do something, do it. I've seen people get sick and injuries and illnesses because they're resisting their purpose. They're coming up with subconscious excuses for dragging their shit around, lymphatic constipation, and all kinds of stuff so that they can avoid those big D desires, the dharmic, right? So little D desires can be a place that people go to kill off that higher expression of themselves. And the distinction of you're always on call, but you're not always on duty means you're always be available for the promptings of intuition to tell us what to do moment by moment. But we're not always going to be told what to do moment by moment. I was just thinking today, I think my friend's list is 81,000 people who he regularly impacts and growing that on a regular basis, doing live events. There are 200-300 people sometimes every so often. He lives life and is enjoying what he's there to do, but he's always listening for and doing what he's told to do to the best of his ability.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. Definitely a tangent we could go deeper into. But I want to rate us both in here because I love, we were talking just a moment before we jumped on together about codependency and interdependency. I'd love to hear that, as well as this idea that like everything is sex and everything is foreplay. When it comes down to it, better sex, better life is about co-empowerment and really making agreements that work for both of us or all of us, if you will. So yeah, so I'm wondering if you can jump in and speak to that a little bit.
Absolutely. And thanks for playing around all that. Growing up autistic meant, and without realizing it, right? And can't so clear on it. I don't identify with the diagnosis anymore, but I do have a certain type of brain, right? So diseases don't exist, but symptoms do.
Mm-hmm.
Diseases are made up. Diseases are useful places where people go to resist their purpose and suffer in order to get attention to try to prove they're worthy of love. The experience that I had was of not understanding how to create love, intimacy, or sex. I was socially awkward, anxious, introverted, as the bio says. And after 15 years of like chipping away at the stuff stored in my nervous system, at the beliefs stored in my brain, and building skills, I had this period where I went from clueless to Casanova to then conscious, where it was like, okay, suppressed to expressed to then overexpressed and realizing, oh, hold up, DJ turntable stop, like, okay, I need to actually think this through and feel into what's my highest alignment and choice, which is what I mean by conscious in sex.
So when
For
I hear
me,
you say that,
yeah,
I imagine what happened for you was you were not very engaged or able to connect with women. All of a sudden, you had lots of connection with women, and it was like, holy shit, this is awesome. And then at a certain point, awesome was like, well, maybe not quite awesome, but there's a lot of, what I'm told I'm supposed to want and supposed to get. And then you stepped into a place where you were sorting for what was more for you versus going after what you think you're supposed to want in sex and in connection, which for some people, specifically men, can be lots and lots of women and lots of different positions. Whether they actually get to bring their whole selves there or not is a whole nother story. So when I hear you say that, I'm like, ooh, what are you looking for now?
oh, great question. So for me, there started to arise this idea that I have a nature or a path of least resistance, a flow that is uniquely mine, that when I honor it, I am more fulfilled and the sex is actually better. And if I don't honor it, well, it's like a dog returning to its vomit or chasing its tail. I always like to say that Casanova was a great place to live, but a terrible cul-de-sac to get stuck in, or a great place to visit, terrible place to live. Yeah, there it is. It's a cul-de-sac. You're chasing tail, and you eventually realize you're chasing just your own tail. Unregulated, enthusiastic pursuit of hedonism. I think pleasure is nice and sex is good for you. I think that was the writers of The Ethical Slut. Great book. Sex is nice and pleasure is good for you. Like, yeah, okay, agree. I 100% agree. And Daniel Amen, Sex and the Brain, he says, those who have more sex more often live longer, healthier, happier lives. Now, assuming that it's quality sex, I think the study had to have been assuming it's quality sex. Yeah, I started to look at why, this is 2015, I had all these Tinder matches and dates. I'd hook up, I'd open my heart, and then I'd have my heart broken because they would go. Because for them, it was not serious. For me, I had a tendency to crave and to share deep intimacy, even early on, not realizing that what I most wanted was a relationship underneath all the sort of player, chaotic lifestyle. And so it's difficult from a space of sexual abundance to return to mainstream patriarchal driven programming, to the generally piss poor restrictions of monogamous marriages that end in 60% divorce, for example, without even a space for sexual exploration or articulation beyond your primary partner. I've never met any one human being who's only ever been attracted to one other human being. It's in our biology that we're all attracted to more than one person or type of person. I like to say my heart is deeply monogamous, my cock is deeply polyamorous. Yeah.
I love what you just said about going from sexual abundance back to patriarchal rules and regulations, and how that just that didn't work for you.
Yeah, I tried. So it was funny. What cued me into the realization that I needed to operate with more consciousness and alignment and awareness in sexuality was I got to the point where I was working maybe 5 hours a week at BrainJuice, and I started to make errors. I started to like deprioritize my job over chasing ass. And I was in a men's group with a really great communicative thread with One Taste here in Austin. There were no clean, clear indications of, hey, you should pursue your purpose, and that's actually healthier for you. And the sex will come easier if you're pursuing your purpose above all, if you're in alignment with yourself, if you're doing what's best for you. I distinctly remember a day where I had sex with 3 different women in the same day. And it was like, okay, great. That was fun. That felt good. And then I was fired from BrainJuice because I had allowed my attention and my energy and my input to drift so far off. They said, all right, we see you don't really love and adore or find resonance or your purpose in living here or being here. So you got 30 days to create an opportunity to be somewhere else or a new position here, because it was a really flexible startup. And I couldn't think of anything else to do. So I was like, you know what? I desire to share my expertise as a dating and relationship coach. And it's a far cry from helping people to complete the internal work to have their next relationship be their best and their last of their life that I'm doing now within Make Love Easy. Back then, it was a mix of like authenticity-based seduction and dating and relationship training with NLP and stuff. And I was half-baked. I was half-baked business-wise. I was half-baked in terms of skills. I had helped some people. I had mostly helped myself. And I was like, I think I can help some people. So my journey went into falling on my face in business and then realizing, oh, if I align with my purpose and my prosperity, that will actually magnetize better partners and better quality of sex. So I started aligning with this expression of my nature. As a blaze genius, I love people. As a supporter, I love opening my heart. As an 8 of hearts in Egyptian astrology, I can nuke people with affection and attention, but it can blow up on me if I do that to the wrong person who then ghosts me. So I started to learn myself and gain self-awareness and self-mastery. And so the sex increased in quality, if not in quantity. Like I went from like 12 plus partners per year, whatever, to like 1 new partner per year for the past like 5 years, 1 or 2. And what am I looking for now? I remember your question. I wasn't dancing around it. This context. What I'm choosing to create now is there is a woman who I love, who I am standing in the possibility of deep, aligned, nourishing connection, reconciliation, intimacy, even partnership, if source wills and is aligned with it. And then I've also got my primary partner in polyamory, who I currently deeply love. And I'm also open for business to a certain extent when it comes to like adventures with other partners or other people. Like I go out on dates and I talk to other people. And there are edges of practice for me. What I'm looking for myself is pretty rigorous, like semen retention, multiple orgasms, non-ejaculatory orgasms, limbic resonance through orgasmic meditation to where I can feel their pleasure without having to come in a traditional male way. Like all of these, I think, would serve my purpose and my business and my life and my sex. So these are like directions I have. And I'm also inventing the possibility of a new, thin, hot, redheaded sex partner, which I've also in the past couple of years been able to manifest within a day or two if I have real strong attention onto it. So yeah, anyway, does it give you the answer you're looking for?
Yeah, well, I mean, I certainly get an idea of where you're at and what it is you're looking for. But I want to come back again to this idea of when you align with your mission and your purpose, that for you, everything else follows, and it follows easy and it follows in flow. And doing that for yourself helps to create more experience for those around you.
Yeah, great example. There are two things to say about that. One, the feminine polarity. So if you're in the masculine polarity, you're in pursuit of your purpose, your dharma. We all have it inside of us. It varies depending on what side of the spectrum we're on. So I'm a masculine polarity person. So when I allow myself to express from that part of my nature, when I do my purpose and go in the direction of that, that is intrinsically magnetic and attractive. Women have walked up to me at events, in situations, because of the energy, the frequency, the alignment that I was carrying. And it was easier to relate to them because I didn't get all codependent, hooked into like, oh, I need your attention or your approval or hunger for something that I think you have that's going to make me feel better about myself. Like, no, I don't need any of that shit. Now, I'm not going to say there aren't moments where I don't still have triggers of codependence rather than acting from co-empowered alignment. But
Well,
they're
hang on just a second.
sure.
Co-aligned. What was that phrase?
Co-empowered alignment. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to pause for a second. You're going to tell me what that is.
Okay. So co-empowerment is what's left in the absence of codependence, which means what is codependence? Codependence is when you think, when I think, when anyone thinks and operates from belief that their abundance, their love, their fulfillment, or their power or anything their happiness depends on anything outside of them, because it doesn't. It appears without, though it is within. If we tune to it within ourselves, we can receive it regardless of whether a partner shows up to give it to us. And sex is this, love is this, abundance is this, abuse is this too. Like love doesn't come from people, it comes through people when we tune to it. It appears without, though it is within. So does abundance, so does good sex, so does abuse. If somebody's tuned to that and carrying that around, they are magnetizing, they are attracting the experience of that. Just not to gaslit anybody who's like have an abusive partner. Like if you're with an abusive partner, we'll step out of the fucking relationship, right? But it is to say that there's a way out. The way out of any external circumstance that we're experiencing is in. The way out is through what is within. Carl Jung said, the outer world will rule our lives and we will call it fate until we make the subconscious conscious and deal with what's there. Because we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. We attract who we are. So co-empowerment is that state of giving it all to yourself first, finding it all in yourself first, so that you're not clinging, grabbing, clutching, attached to, resisting, not receiving it from outside. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it really completely resonates right in this moment, because I just got off of a coaching session with a couple who it was so fascinating because, their patterns came together perfectly. His pattern, I mean, for just simplistic sense, his pattern of moving away brought her pattern of moving towards, and it's just they're bumping off of each other. And what I was trying to direct them in the session was essentially what you're talking about, is how do you allow yourself to have the thing that you really need and really want, and have that internally, so that as you are connected externally, what you are drawing in is the piece that feeds you instead of the piece that becomes codependent, and the cycle. Because the worst thing about that cycle is these two people love and care and want to share their lives together and do beautiful things together. Like I've actually seen them like just unwind. Like I've seen them like in a big old knot together. And then I've seen them when they're able to sit side by side and reach out to each other. And it's so different. And as you were talking, I was like, yes, I know that. And it is really that winding back and that giving yourself the peace that you need. Like the partner who is pursuing for connection, like they're so disconnected from themselves. And the partner that is running, they need space, but they have no way to turn around and say to their partner, like, hey, I just need you over there. Like I can connect with you, but I want to connect with you over there. So anyway, yeah.
Magnificent. I've been there. I've done that. I've inhabited those patterns. And I know the heartache and the heartbreak of being in a space of nourished, connected, aligned with somebody and creating beautiful things, but also having moments of excruciating, horrifying, just conflict and codependence. And hey, I need you to show up in a certain way and you're not. So I'm going to yell and be yelled at. And you just gave me a key to your house. And now you're kicking me out because I'm upset. I will say this, all of my wisdom, whatever wisdom I have in relationships, and everything is foreplay, by the way. So like any good we do for someone in the realm of relationship gives them a space as a prelude to sex. Because foreplay doesn't start 10 minutes before, it starts 10 years before. It's 10 hours before, 10 weeks before. Like if there's a waxy buildup of conflict and chaos and codependence, I mean, sure, there can be a spontaneous quickie of like, I hate you so much, I'm going to throw you against the wall, and we're going to fuck or some shit. But then there's like the real depth of heart open, completely nourishing, feeling safe, all of that. And yeah, I saw you had a lot. Go ahead.
Well, no, it just occurs to me that what I heard you say was that all of your wisdom is life-based, hard-won wisdom. And I'm wondering if, in the service of better sex, if you could suggest what would be one small or large, or what would be one change or thing that someone could do to move towards better sex?
Oh my gosh. So the thing that'll serve the most people is to release all judgment on yourself and your partner. There's nothing worthy of judgment, and there's no one worthy of judgment. There are things worthy of discernment, which is a little different than making someone right or wrong. Discernment is like works for me or doesn't work given what I'm committed to. Like anal might not work for certain people or certain positions or whatever, or certain desires might work or not work. But judging, like cutting it off at the pass and saying there's something wrong with someone for having it or something wrong with me for experiencing a desire. Like we need more sexual freedom as a species, as a civilization, and more conversation without judgment around it.
And do you have something that you do or suggest to people to help them release judgment?
A couple things. One is the Ho'oponopono practice, which I have a very particular version of it that I should totally turn into a lead magnet. I'm always thinking from a business perspective, but the basic idea, and I'll just give it to your people right now, is I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. But really, it's not just the practice of looking at yourself, imagining your inner child, and you've been speaking meanly to that child. You're bad and wrong for wanting a threesome. Well, no, I'm sorry for judging you for that. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Or your partner in a conversation. I'm sorry for judging you for that. The deeper level to that is that we've been judging lots of people for that same thing. And the reason we've been judging them is to try to prove that we're not good enough, we're not capable, or that there's something wrong with us or whatever. Because whatever we're judging out here, we're actually also judging inside. It appears without, though it is within. Mm-hmm. So if we can release all judgment on our expression within, then we, generally speaking, won't receive as much judgment from without. We'll still get people who disagree with us or believe different things or whatever, but we won't experience that sting. And then there's a card game. You can find it at gamesforhumanity.com. It's called Let's Talk About Sex. And it's really beautiful. I've used it in workshops for years as a means to create a space for people to just express their sexual desires in a context of freedom, safety, comfort, and ease. So those are my top two.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, this has been such a hot conversation. Thank you so much for your time. And I just have to ask 3 closing questions. Usually I only ask 1, but we're going to go with 3. So first, what would you tell men about women? Or what would you tell masculine-oriented folks about the feminine?
They want to feel you, and it's okay to feel your feelings with them. And in fact, they fucking love it. And any ounce of your feeling that you can allow yourself to feel with them or for them or with yourself around them, do that, because it deepens intimacy to a degree that any amount of like thinking shit through or tactics or techniques or crafting an expression won't. We're fundamentally feeling beings. We feel first, we think second, evolutionarily. Yeah.
So good. So, question number 2. What would you tell feminine beings about the masculine? What do we need to know?
We're not all narcissistic assholes. Just kidding. Cancel clear. I'm looking for a good joke here and I'm not finding it. Men are looking to be supported in alignment with their highest expression. If it's a man worth pursuing, and the worst thing a woman or a feminine polarized person or being can be stuck with is the experience of being stuck behind a parked car. I think it was Les Brown who described a man without a purpose or a masculine oriented without something that is more important. I think I'll just quote the way of the superior man for women. Women, you were never men's purpose and you never will be. But if you understand that and accept that and support a man in that, you will be right there up there next on his list. And that order of things it feels really aligned to me. It feels really nourishing. It feels really co-empowered because then the man isn't looking for his women or woman, speaking from Pali there for a moment, to fill a void or to make up for some ego wound. The man is sharing from a place of fullness. So I guess 2 women look for a man like that, who's already full of his purpose and is filling himself up more and more with his purpose. And through resignation, like a surrender to a horrible reality, but accept like, hey, by being a masculine polarity being, he's going to aim at that masculine expression, which is purpose, which is action and activity, which is like conquering and serving and giving his gifts. So did that land?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I definitely have some thoughts about that, but
I could tell.
yeah, I think that it's just such an interesting thing around like purpose, right? And that being the masculine pole. Because I think there's a lot of people in feminine bodies that have a really solid purpose. And so then you kind of get into this whole thing around whose purpose goes first and all that good stuff.
Oh, easy answer, both. I'm not here to sacrifice a single shred of my purpose for the sake of codependently contorting to have some woman be in my life or some person to be in my world. And I think the sub question is like, what does it look like inside of the masculine feminine polarity inside of a person? Because we all want intimacy according to the traditional, and we all want purpose. I'll never forget Dave Burns saying, you give yourself fully to each side of this polarity, and it gives you the skill of being able to practice and play on the other side. So if I give the extent to which I'm giving myself fully to purpose means I'm more skilled in giving myself to intimacy when the moment comes that intimacy is my purpose. And yet, if 2 halves don't make a whole, 2 halves make a hell. So like we can either both look towards our purpose in God and be walking hand in hand, or we can look towards each other and think that we're going to find something there that we never will. So
When I hear you say, and thank you for the clarification, because what I often hear in the discussion around men and purpose is that, and women being not first, but like after purpose, is that there's an implicit thing about how, at least this is again totally my thing here, but it's the implicit thing I hear then is that I'm supposed to get on board and support the purpose, whether it's mine or not.
yeah, I get that. So there are a bunch of different ways of cashing this out. My dear friend, his purpose is to bring self-sustainable eco-villages across the planet. And his wife has supported him in that in many years. And she's also inside herself done evolutions along, is she more feminine polarized in relation to him inside of the flow of his purpose, in the wake of his purpose? Or is she in herself, depending on the season and the time, more masculine polarized to living her unique purpose? And there's room for all and both. I think with any strongly masculinely polarized man, that part of the spectrum that a woman is going to have to accept is that he's going a direction and it's with or without me. And I can accept it and support him in it, or I can try to fight against it or try to detract from it. The same for a woman. I'm not here to tell a woman not to put her man over her purpose. And for some women, their purpose is to have babies and to create a family. So it becomes even subtler at that point. Like I'm here to support a woman the feminine polarity in her highest unique specific expression, which is where tools, wealth dynamics or human design or love cards with Egyptian astrology come into play, because then you can start to chart someone's unique destiny, their karma, their dharma, and help guide them into an awareness of this is who you really are. And let's help the full flowering, blooming, blossoming of that. And maybe you do that by serving me and my purpose and organization to a certain extent. Maybe you don't. I was just witnessing a female coach. She was like, her husband invited her to fitness coach with him. And she was like, yeah, that doesn't resonate with me. And I stand full on behind that. Support doesn't have to look like you're making the food and baking the baby, or I love how that came out.
So thank you so much for that clarification. And I am so grateful for your time today. So third question, how can we find out more about you and where do we look? And there will be links down in the show notes, but I love it. I just love to hear people talk about where to find them.
Oh my gosh.
We
So
find
I'm so delighted. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm going to be on TikTok soon. Louis Brantmeyer, Louis Brantmeyer, hearty German last name, all one word. And I'm the young one. There's another one that's old. That's my dad on Facebook. That's where I like to play the most. And then Instagram, it's all lowercase. Yeah, it's cute. It's cute. He sends me memes all the time. On Instagram, it's Louis M. Brantmeyer, which is, there used to be another version of me that you can find. It's not that one. That account was just long story. But Louis M. Brantmeyer, I'm starting to play a little bit on Instagram too. And if you want to schedule a call with me, it's bit.ly/make love so easy, all lowercase. So that's it. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
I love that. Make love so easy. Not just easy, but so easy. But anyway, thank you so much for this incredibly fun conversation. I love that we went to all these different places. As you say, life is foreplay and sex, and there's so many different ways to do it, and let's all do it just a little bit better. Thank you so very much for joining us today on the Better Sex Podcast, and I look forward to new and loving conversations. So go ahead and subscribe so you know when we're coming out next. And I look forward to more unfiltered conversations.